I am so happy to be here with all of you and to not be going anywhere. And I am so grateful to you for giving me the gift of a sabbatical. It was a gift of life. You gave me life. You know, the secret is that I didn't 100% want to go. I love being home, and I love my own bed, and my apartment, and my neighborhood, and our community. I love what's familiar. And I didn't entirely want to go be by myself for many months in unfamiliar places. But this congregation, through your board and your immediate past president, told me that your commitment was that I not burn out. And therefore, I had to take my sabbatical. And I knew you were right. So we announced it 3 years before I left, which gave me 3 years to ask if the goal is to renew myself and to deeply refresh myself, and I could do anything for 6 whole months, how can I best use that time to accomplish the goal? And I decided that I should be in the wilderness. And I decided I should mostly be by myself, listening for God, and moving my body, and breathing fresh air, and experiencing beauty, and remembering how small I am in the scheme of things. And I'm very happy to report that that's exactly what I did. And it was exactly what I needed. I have been completely refreshed. I'm pretty sure I'm younger than when I left. And after services tonight, I'm going to be offering an old-timey slideshow of my adventures. So I won't say more details now, except that I was a little bit afraid that once I got really far away, I might think, this job is really hard, and maybe I don't want to do it anymore. But the opposite happened. I got out there, and I was so in touch with the incredible miracle, the privilege of being able to be a rabbi here and to be able to be your rabbi. And it would bring me to tears. Like, I was so in awe that I get to do this. And so I'm really glad to be back. And I have to say that I have the deepest gratitude from literally every cell of my body to Rabbi Colin and to Rabbi Green and to Cantor Breitzer and to Rabbi Trailer and to cantorial intern Leslie Goldberg and to our president Leslie Lewin and to our executive vice president Matt Baer and to our executive committee and to our board and to our staff who stepped into that space in what turned out to be the most difficult time any of us could have imagined. And together they led so ably that this congregation is stronger by every measure than it was when I left. It actually is. Like any metric you use, this congregation is stronger now than it was 6 months ago. One of the best possible outcomes of a sabbatical is that everyone realizes that you don't need the leader. You like having me here, and I am very glad of that. But you're okay without me. And everyone just saw that. Look how strong you are, CBE. While away, I was given the gift of distance. I was able to see a lot of things. But I was able to see how young we are as a species, we human beings, in the context of the magnificent, multifarious life on this planet. And I was able to see how young life on this planet is since the beginning of our universe. And I was able to see how small life on this planet is in the context of at least 100 billion galaxies. And honestly, I wasn't really able to see that. I was really only able to see how small we are in the context of maybe 20 other galaxies that I could see with my naked eye and through a telescope. Still really small. And I was able to see that humanity, this very young species, is in this one galaxy among billions, is evolving very quickly toward concepts of dignity and freedom and equality and love and compassion alongside big technological leaps, intellectual leaps, and consciousness leaps. We're growing together across geography through communication and economy and migration. And we're learning that we're one interdependent living system. And as the trees already know, and some indigenous peoples already knew, we're better off if we find the right balance of boundaries and sharing. We're better off if we learn how to share with one another, as well as having boundaries. And if we care for one another, because we're only as well as the most vulnerable among us. We're learning. And just like children at a big developmental leap, we're regressing for a moment right now, as happens. I came home to the vile news, I can make a big list here, but I came home to the vile news of Alligator Alcatraz, the concentration camp that this administration has built in the Florida Everglades right near where I grew up. I think there are about 400 detainees there so far. They're in metal buildings in the Florida sun. They've not been out at all, at least when I last read a report. They're complaining of lack of water and food and showers, and that the lights are on all night, and then during the day the generators fail, which means there's no air conditioning, which in a metal box in the Everglades is extremely dangerous. Not to mention the swarms of mosquitoes, which I will tell you are truly terrible in the Everglades. $45 billion was just budgeted to build more concentration camps. I came home to the obscene news of a large piece of legislation with that name, kind of, passed by Congress and signed by the president, by which at least 10 million of the poorest Americans are likely to lose their health care, and 2 million of the very poorest Americans are likely to lose the food aid they depend on to live. And I came home to the despicable news of starving Gazans being shot at while trying to get food. These are examples of regression, cruel dehumanization of the stranger and the widow and the orphan, the vulnerable. None of these things are unprecedented. We have been detaining immigrants in this country for a very long time, actually, and are used to mass incarceration. We've been playing politics with poverty also for a very long time. We've been using violence where it doesn't belong also for a very long time. These are the same things that our Torah and our prophets warned against 3,000 years ago. But remember, 3,000 years is the blink of an eye. Homo sapiens has been around for 300,000 years. Despite these examples, we're learning actually really fast. Not fast enough, but really fast. Times of convulsive change are always dangerous for the Jewish people, which means, as we all know, that we must think carefully and act with clarity to keep ourselves and our people safe. And also, the Jewish people are made for moments like this. Judaism is made for moments like this. In our Parsha this week, for example, we are migrants. We've escaped from a country where we were oppressed, and we're looking to make a new home in a land where we can live freely and work hard to feed our families. Sound familiar? We are migrants. And in this week's Parsha, we've crossed borders to settle on the plains of Moab. And the king of Moab is trying to curse us in order to remove us. Now, from his perspective, the Moabite king Balak is full of dread because we've just vanquished 3 neighboring armies and are now his neighbor. But the reason we defeated those other armies is that when we approached their border peaceably, they came out to fight us. First, we approached the king of Edom and sent messengers asking if we could simply cross his land, and he said no. So we turned around and went all the way around his land. Then the Canaanite king of Arad learned that we were on our way, and before we could send him messengers, he came out to attack us, so we fought back and defeated him. And then we sent messengers to the king Sihon of the Amorites, and the messengers made it clear we came in peace, asking only if we could pass through the land. We promised we would stick to the road and not veer off in any direction. We said we would not take food from the fields, and we would not drink from the wells. And the answer was no. And instead he met us with his army, and we defeated him. And then the next king, Og of Bashan, also sent his army to meet us, and we fought them and won again. And now King Balak, this Parsha, recognizing that no army can defeat us if we have God's blessing, is trying to get the soothsayer Balaam to curse us so that the Moabite army can send us away. The outcome is obvious from the start in the Parsha. We've already been trained by Torah to know that all kings who stand against human dignity, starting with Pharaoh, all kings who seek to oppress the stranger will fall and will fail. Yeah. And in the end, Balaam blesses us instead of cursing us. But one thing he says in the midst of the blessing doesn't sound like a blessing. He says, "It is a nation dwelling alone, not reckoned among the nations." About us. What does that mean? Well, Rashi interprets it to mean that our people will survive the rise and fall of many other nations. That turned out to be true. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, drawing from Rabbi Soloveitchik, teaches that while all other nations developed by sharing the same land and their primary bond was defense against other groups or nations, the Jewish people from the Babylonian exile on has developed in many different lands, but have been bound together by Torah. We are unique among nations, being both a religion and a people. We have different languages, different customs, different cultures, different ethnicities. The only thing we all have in common is our Torah. And that is why we're made for this moment. We are a people who stand for something. We are a people who stand for life. We are a people who stand for human dignity. We are a people who stand for loving the stranger. We are. We are people who stand for the idea that every person is equally in the image of God. We stand for the idea that in that image, humanity is learning and evolving and becoming more and more of who we are meant to be. In a moment like this, we rise to that calling with our full lives. Shabbat shalom.